New Orleans, cultural and culinary epicenter of the entire South, and the birthplace to some of the best restaurants in the entire world. And this is where we begin our journey that your Louisiana seafood takes from the waters and tributaries of South Louisiana to your plate. This is Backyard Bayou. And we certainly couldn't spend a night in New Orleans without getting the entire crew out for a night of fun on the world-famous Bourbon Street.
We're on Bourbon right now. Shout out to New Orleans. I'm with the homie right now. I like this guy's shirt right here.
And after a morning that felt like it came way too early, we hop into our car and we're driving 15 miles outside of the city limits of New Orleans to Lake Borgne. We're going to catch up with Pete, who's been fishing his entire life. He's 65. He says he's been fishing for 60 years, and he's taking us out to a little long lining. He's got a really interesting story, and it was a pleasure to spend just a part of the day with Pete to see how Louisiana seafood shapes his life.
I've been fishing, for the last 50 years, basically. Fishing, I know for a fact, on my own for 45 years. And we're in Lake Borgne, which is one of the tributaries to Breton Sound and the inland waters of Lake Pontchartrain. And this is part of Sportsman's Paradise right here, where we at.
These long lines were full of fish, and it wasn't long before we started pulling in some of the biggest fish that I've ever seen. But much to my surprise, and what we're trained in North Louisiana to go after the largest fish that we can, we started throwing back the big ones.
Now that fish probably about somewhere between 15 and 20 years old.
And there's no market for it?
No, years ago we used to fish it with seines, but we could catch a lot of them. I'm talking about 5,000 to 6,000 head in a set. And we used to keep the population down.
Since there's no market value for these gigantic bull drums, we throw them back and we continue our trek to find some of the best catfish these waters have to offer. But Pete tells me we need to keep our eye out for what he calls the money fish, which is the black drum. And this is one of the highest grossing fish that he gets out of Lake Borgne. And as impressive as the huge fish that we were catching were, and the boats and the beautiful waterways of South Louisiana, the most impressive thing of this trip was the resilience that Pete has as a Louisiana fisherman.
This is in my blood. My wife always thought I was crazy. I had some rough times in this industry. After Andrew did a lot of places, we used to fish catfish down in Sheraton, Franklin area and all that. And I had a friend of mine had a catfish house down there, and that area was just about decimated completely. All the chaffalai into there was gone. So I knew we had catfish here, so he came and fished with me here for 2 years until he came back by him. We fished hoop nuts, same thing that the Indians fish with. And I still fish hoop nuts for catfish. It's just you switch from things to things. When storms it. But when things get bad, you got to go to something else. You might want to fish speckled trout, which I still can fish speckled trout. I got a permit for it. But right now, they're impossible to catch with a pole. So you can't fish speckled. Say, I'm a speckled trout fisherman. No, you go fish something else. You go fish drum, catfish, whatever, and you make ends meet.
When it gets tough, what stops you from giving up?
Just being stupid, I guess. You ask anybody in a buy, they'll say the same damn thing. You got this, it's like a gambler. You get this thing in your head, and you always say, tomorrow's going to be a better day. Oh, I'm going to pull out next year. Next year's going to be the year. And you do have the years. We had years when we were fishing mullets where you didn't catch a mullet. Then you go to next year, you'd make $90,000 in 3 months. So, it's just like I say, like a high roller, you never know what's going to come up.
Now, only being 15 miles outside of New Orleans, we quickly found ourselves with something on the end of the line that I never would have expected.
There is something on the end of this line right now. And I think I see what it is. But it is fighting. It does not want to come in the boat. And I don't want to go out of the boat. We're going to see who wins. careful with this guy. See right here? He's got this long spine. It's covered in a fleshy sheet. And those spines, they have channels that go all the way through the bottom of them that help with that venom delivery. It's the same venom like a catfish. And that spine has serrations all down the side. So it's like a steak knife stabbing into you. And so it's going to do a lot more damage coming out than it does going in. And it is extremely painful.
So after our run-in with the Atlantic stingray and we all escaped unscathed, we took a moment to talk to Pete about why it's important to him to purchase Louisiana seafood.
You got to look at labels. I mean, you have to make sure it's, you know, what you think you eat. Just because you're buying a soft crab and, you know, you whatever your restaurant, I mean, your grocery store might be, whether it be a Rouse's, a Dornax, or whoever, you know, and it, you know, it's in a case and it's got a Louisiana ice pick sticking over it. That might not be for that product. Maybe the product next to it. You know, it might be a soft crab that came out of Mexico. You know, or it might be shrimp from Mexico instead of Louisiana. You know, so, you know, make sure you eat an authentic Louisiana. It's a big thing I got to say. You know, that's what we're known for. This state's known for the best seafood. It's because of the Mississippi Delta. And when we lose the Delta, we don't have that anymore. We just like everybody else.
So as we wrap up our day on the water, I realized that being a deckhand for Pete may be one of the shortest lived jobs that I've ever had. I don't think we quite cut it as professional fishermen today.
Not a good day. You might have made expenses. Probably not.
Now that Pete's fired the entire crew, which honestly, I don't blame him one bit, we take our meager day's catch back into New Orleans for it to be processed and packaged.
Our journey has taken us here to Harlan's LA Fish. This is actually where we get fish for Salt Restaurant at Shreveport Aquarium. We're gonna go behind the scenes and take a look at how the fish that come from the waters of Louisiana are processed and then sent onto the restaurant to be served to you on your plate.
We enjoyed the privilege of getting a grand tour of the facility from Harlan himself. There's a treasure trove of information, and he took us through this incredible facility that brings in fish from all over the Gulf South. But more specifically, what we're interested in is the wing, the facility that he has just for Louisiana wild catfish.
You know, without seafood, New Orleans would not be New Orleans, so the state would not be the same, the whole Gulf would not be the same as who we are. And so the perpetuation of that thought process and perpetuation of our fishermen and our heritage and our culture is very, very important to what keeps this city alive, this state.
And by buying Louisiana seafood, we're more than just buying the food that's going to go onto our plate. We're buying into continuing this tradition of taking the fish from the water for the families that are here.
Yeah, you're not buying seafood, you're buying culture. You're buying Louisiana.
We're making an investment into our future.
Exactly, that's what you are.
So our journey is going to end where it usually begins. We're back home here at the Shreveport Aquarium and Salt Restaurant. We're going to take some of that fish you just saw at Harlan's LA Seafood, and we're going to take it into the kitchen and fry up one of my favorites, and that's crispy fried catfish. Now this is the fish that we just saw getting packed in Harlan's when we were down there with these guys. They're down in Kenner, right next to New Orleans, and we get it right up here in Shreveport. This is a wild-caught catfish, just like we were talking about there with Harlan, and it's got that extra flavor. It's not that the farm-raised catfish, but there's nothing wrong with it. But if we want that extra layer of flavor, we get it right here, straight from the wild. Wait, we got one more ingredient. This is going to be an extra crispy thin catfish. So, let's add in a New Orleans flavor, shall we? Now I don't feel like crunching all these up with my hands. So we got our buddy the Robo-Code here. there you have it. We're back on Backyard Bayou, and we've gone a long way. What a better way to celebrate Louisiana seafood than to take it from the southeast corner of the state, New Orleans, all the way up here to our home in northwest Louisiana, to Kenner, to the catfish processor that actually made this catfish right here. I can't think of a better way than just to dig in. So, remember, when you're looking at your cool labels, look for Louisiana seafood. You're not just choosing something off of the rack. You're making an investment into one of the cornerstones of the culture of Louisiana. These farmers and fishermen who've been at it since they were 5 years old, and Pete was 65. So decades upon decades and generations to come. When you support Louisiana seafood, you're supporting just that. My favorite part. It's time to dig in. This episode is brought to you by the Louisiana Seafood Promotion and Marketing Board and Louisiana. Feed your soul.